faster than a speeding bullet. Nope, that's it. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss the 1990 TV series, The Flash. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and joining me today in the co-host chair is the fastest co-host alive. It's the dapper Southern gent, Blake Fowler.
So fast that this episode's already over?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
For Moving Panels,
Thank
I'm
you, everyone.
Wouldn't that be the thing? You just...
All right. Everybody listen to this on like 6 times speed, and you'll get a feel for what the Flash hears, or does, or can see.
Look, Bethany's probably listening to us on like 1.5 speed. I know she does that.
Oh, God. How do you comprehend something that quickly?
She does.
No. Maybe Bethany has superpowers that we don't know about.
In fact, if we're ever on a trip and I'm listening to something at just normal speed, she thinks it's so slow. Like
it's normal speed.
Yeah.
You can't speed things up to a faster pace and then say everyone else is slowed down. We're at a normal regular pace, Bethany. When you listen to this, Bethany, slow me down to normal speed. This is how it's supposed to sound. That is all.
Okay. Well, let's get back to the actual episode. So today, Blake and I are going to talk about a TV show that some of y'all have probably never heard of. Even though this television show is strongly connected to the CW's Flash. This is the Flash from 1990. It bled into 91, but just like we always refer to the Michael Keaton Batman as Batman 89, this has become known as the Flash 1990 or the Flash 90, however you want to call it. They even called it Earth 90 on the CW Flash.
What a time
Anything
to be alive.
associated with this, yeah.
Okay. Did not know that, as I did not make it far enough into the Flash show. I think it has ended now, correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the CW Flash show ended close to 2 years ago now.
But I know, I think John Wesley, did he play Wally West in that? Not to get too far,
No,
of course?
so he first played Henry Allen.
Oh, okay.
Like he was Barry's dad. which I gonna go ahead and talk. So yeah, John Wesley Shipp, go ahead and say, played Barry Allen, the Flash, on this show. He then played Henry Allen, Barry's dad, on the CW Flash. And I remember when I sat down to watch the first episode, when it aired in, I think it was 2014, I remember seeing him, and I got onto Twitter, and I made a tweet about it's awesome seeing the original Flash playing the new Flash's dad. And I tagged John Wesley Shipp in the post. And then I'm sitting there watching the episode, and I get a notification. I look, and it says, John Wesley Shipp liked your post.
So hold on. The Flash pressed the like button on your tweet.
Yes. Yes, John Wesley Shipp liked my tweet.
Laramy, that is far more impressive a tweet like than I've ever had. So kudos to you.
So yeah, I have had a tweet liked by the Flash. All right, but this show originally aired on CBS from September 20th of 1990 to May 18th of 1991. And you and I were just talking about this before we started recording. I remember watching this show. I was 9 when the show aired. I remember watching this show. Don't know how many of the episodes I actually got to watch, but I do remember this. You remember watching it, but once you found out these dates, you knew there was no way you watched it as it aired.
Had to have been reruns. I would have been 4 years old for the duration of these 22 episodes. So I would imagine that I was watching reruns. I grew up in a household where my dad was a big Spider-Man fan and was a big superhero fan. And so we watched, Batman, Spider-Man shows, and obviously reruns of The Flash, I'm assuming, because I would not remember it from being during 1990 and 1991. So yeah, my memories are of great memories of watching it. It was just after the fact that it aired.
Yeah. Of course, this was created to ride on the coattails of Batman 89, and it really shows as you watch this.
It really shows.
But at the same time, so I don't know if you caught in the credits, so the theme song was written by Danny Elfman.
I did see that, and it's very I'm not gonna say Batman-esque, but it's very Elfman-esque for that time period, I think. And it certainly lends to the air of what they were supposedly aiming for with this almost dirty, gritty Central City to mirror that of what Gotham City was in the Batman '89 movie.
Yeah, they did keep Central City a little bit more bright and colorful, but there still was the
a lot of dark alley shots, and you know some and the old,
lots of murals on the walls. A lot of murals for some reason.
The older automobiles where you couldn't really place what decade we were in.
The microphone that the one reporter used, the big old triangle on it or whatever it was.
Yeah, a lot of things were. And I don't know if that's part of the charm or something that took me out of it, but there were a lot of times where I was like, I wish they would just pick a decade. Like, if we're in the 90s, let's be in the 90s.
Yeah, so I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I like that about, like, the '89 Batman, or even the animated shows that came after this, which, again, this music, each episode was scored by Shirley Walker.
Yep.
The fact that the Batman animated series, the Superman animated series also kind of gave this, you can't really put it in a time,
Art Deco-y kind of feel. Yeah. I guess, I guess I can
Art Deco.
Rescind my statement then. It's not awful.
But the show was written by duo Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, who would after this go on and write The Rocketeer.
A classic in my opinion. I love The Rocketeer. So that's pretty cool to know, and it that tracks with the Art Deco-y style that goes into the writing and the scenery. Okay, cool, good little nugget there, Laramy.
Now you ready for this? They later went on and wrote Defy Bloods.
That doesn't make sense. I am not really sure what to do with that information now.
Yeah, so the guys who wrote The
Rocketeer also
and the
wrote
Flash '90s series wrote Defy Bloods.
I need a break. Can we go ahead and just stop for a second? I have to reassess everything I know about my life at this point in time. What range for them?
That shows some talent there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for Danny and Paul.
Yeah, they originally wrote it back in 2013.
Still working after all this time.
Yeah, I mean I don't know how much if they have a writing credit, but I know they were even involved in the writing of Black Klansman,
which is a great movie, first of all. But wow,
so yeah, these guys
are still cashing checks. Good job.
Yeah, they did have comic book writers Howard Chaykin and John Francis Moore, who served as consultants as well as writers on the show. So that's again. I think it helps when you got comic book people involved in comic book things.
Agreed. I think trying to keep it as close to source material as you can for television in the 90s, and the only way to do that is probably to have people who work in comics work on the show.
Yeah. Originally, though, the pitch was for a series called Unlimited Powers, and that was a planned show in which it would feature a team. There would be Barry Allen, but Barry Allen would be in his 40s and would have just been released from a 15-year prison sentence because being a superhero had been outlawed.
What is this, The Watchmen?
Yeah. It would be about him then, I guess, teaming up or working with a group which would have included Green Arrow, Dr. Occult, Block, Wally West, and then Oliver Queen's teenage daughter.
And not a soul would have watched the show. So they made the right decision, in my opinion. I don't foresee, or pass C.
Well, based off of that Justice League of America that they tried to do later in the 90s.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that going over super well. It sounded like they were trying to Batman Beyond Barry Allen. Like they were going to make him older and oversee this crime-fighting brigade.
Well, it kind of made sense a little, and we'll probably talk about this more, but Barry was not the Flash at this point in the comic books.
Fair.
He had quote-unquote died back in Crisis.
But he was the most...
Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Arguably the most popular and well-known Flash. So if you're going to do a TV show,
yeah,
you're going to use Barry Allen.
But they definitely were going for an adult audience because that's what the comics were going for at the time. I mean, Frank Miller's stuff, it was getting a lot darker.
I was surprised at kind of what they got away with a little bit in a few of the episodes for the early 90s to be on CBS, to be honest. So, yeah, it was a little, maybe not darker, but more adult take on The Flash than you would expect.
Again, I think it's that Batman '89 influence.
Yeah.
They didn't want something that was going to be, the Batman '66, where it was just cheesy and corny. I think they kind of found a medium in this.
Sure, there's some comedic moments, some goofy stuff, but still some things.
And
that
it definitely, as the show goes on, it bleeds more into that campy.
It does. And trust me, Laramy, I will get there if you don't.
Get into it.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the characters. As we've already talked about, Barry Allen, the Flash, played by John Wesley Shipp, who, if you didn't watch him in this, like I said, he played Henry Allen in The Flash, and then would later return in this, because the whole multiverse thing, he would turn as Jay Garrick on The Flash.
I'm my own grandpa, also.
And then he even came back as this Barry Allen on The Flash. So he played, quote unquote, 3 different characters on the. Well, I mean, they had the Harrison Wells that just played all different versions of himself. So not way out there.
We're talking about range. That's range also, just to play.
Yeah.
3 different
and
guys.
People who might also be familiar with him. He was Dawson's dad on Dawson's Creek.
I have very few quote-unquote man cards left. I'm gonna keep this one because I've never seen Dawson's Creek.
I actually haven't either.
I don't know.
Do you know what the area code is, or the zip code is, for Dawson's Creek?
They have a zip code.
Yeah,
code?
They said it. They said it in the beginning of every show.
I've never
90108.
I've never seen the show, Larry. 90108.
Yeah. You hear that at the beginning of every show? They went 90108.
I don't want to. Oh my god! I didn't know that's a theme song.
Beginning of every one there.
Oh man. Okay. Good for you. You got me.
Thank you.
Again, didn't know that was a theme song, and it was so confused until you hit the tune perfectly for me to know what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait to use that on a Dawson's Creek fan.
All right. So John Wesley Shipp, again, playing Barry Allen here. Barry Allen first appeared.
Hold on, Paul. Stop. Who did he play on Dawson's Creek again? I've forgotten who he played on Dawson's Creek.
He played Dawson's dad.
Dawson's dad. Okay. I was lost in the moment of 90108 there. All right. Go ahead. Sorry. Proceed.
You're good. So Barry Allen's version of The Flash, again, not the first Flash, because that was Jay Garrick, but Barry Allen's version of The Flash first appeared in Showcase number 4 in October of 1956. This is actually what is marked as the beginning of the Silver Age of comics. So Superman started the Golden Age. Then it was almost 20 years later when The Flash premiered in Showcase number 4 that began the Silver Age, which is where you start getting more of the science fiction aspect of comics.
Which makes sense for The Flash.
Yeah. And but this version of Barry Allen is kind of an amalgam of the comic Barry Allen as well as Wally West, who at the time was the Flash in the comics because Barry had sacrificed himself at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that's actually one of those comic dead. We always joke about how no one stays dead in comics.
Yeah.
Barry Allen stayed dead for 23 years.
Long time.
Before he came back.
Before
they did the rebirth storyline. So, pretty impressive. And what's funny is, like I said, he started the Silver Age. Crisis on Infinite Earths was right there at the end of the Silver Age and started the Modern Age.
Yeah. Okay.
Or the Bronze Age, as people call it. So Barry Allen, very important to comic timelines here. Also,
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the connections he has with Wally West is Wally West. It is known that his top speed is the speed of sound, which they kind of imply is as fast as Barry can run on the show. The whole burning calories and always being hungry after he uses his powers, that's a Wally West thing. And then, of course, the whole Star Labs connection. Star Labs was introduced with Wally West. So there you go. What'd you think of John Wesley Shipp as the leading superhero character? I mean, the man's got the look. I will say.
Yeah,
that.
he looks like a superhero character. Like the chiseled jawline. A couple of episodes where he's like in a tank or kind of like he's got some muscle. He had some build to him back in the day. I almost would have rather seen a suit without all the padding in it. If I'm being honest with you. So no, he does a great job of playing both the Flash and I think a partially aloof Barry Allen. You know, he's got that affable kind of goofy guy next door thing going on when he's Barry Allen, and then he does a good job playing the Flash. I don't know how no one figured it out because he doesn't change his voice at all. There's no different intonation. But aside from that, a great job. No notes.
Then your second lead, Dr. Tina McGee, or Christina McGee, played by Amanda Pays. This is, I don't know if you know this, if you know who I'm talking about, but I know some people out there will, especially Tim Williams and people who are connected with the 80s.
Tim, shout out.
But this was right after she was in another show that is kind of one of those that is thought of fondly but often forgotten, Max Headroom.
I do not know what that is.
Okay. So there was a sci-fi show called Max Headroom, and she was on that show almost playing a very similar part.
Like a scientist role kind of thing? Okay.
So that you had that connection. Now, Tina McGee, Dr. Tina McGee, is from the comics. She is from Flash number 3 in August of 1987. And she was meant to be a love interest for Wally West.
Okay.
So again, not Barry Allen.
Back to the Wally West ties. Yep.
Yeah. The story she tells in the first episode about her husband dying because of a failed experiment, that kind of also came from the comics. Her husband actually becomes one of Flash's villains called Speed Demon. And then he ends up in a coma. And of course, she kind of acts as the Oracle character for the show.
Really a Barbara Gordon. That's exactly what I thought. Barbara Gordon, Oracle.
And this was before that was really a trope.
Right.
Like she might, I didn't dive in enough.
Kind of at
she
the
could
beginning
be the
of
original.
that. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And then you'd get Chloe Sullivan on Smallville would kind of play this role.
Okay.
Then you have Caitlin Snow, even though she would later become Killer Frost, but she would kind of have that part on the new Flash show. Her and I forgot the other scientist.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I watched enough of the beginning of the new Flash to know vaguely who you're speaking about. So yeah, I mean, she could have been on the cutting edge at this time. I know you asked me how I felt about John Wesley Shipp playing the Flash. I don't know if you're going to ask me how I feel about what's her name again? Sorry.
Dr. Tina McGee?
No, what's the actress's name?
Oh, Amanda Pays.
Amanda Pays. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Everyone else other than John Wesley Shipp tries really hard. They give their best effort in acting, and that's about all I can say about anybody else on the show. They really try.
It's not that bad.
There's a lot of soapy vibes going on.
Okay, I'll give you that. Which John Wesley Shipp was a soap opera actor before he landed this. So.
There it is. And yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of overacting. It feels like a lot of very much grandiose acting going on.
Then you've got the quote-unquote sidekick for Barry, Julio Mendez, played by Alec Desert. I don't know if there's supposed to be any type of
I'm not sure
emphasis on any part of that
accent there. Yeah.
He's an actor. As soon as he popped up, I was like, I know you from something.
Okay, tell me, because I want to know. I knew. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so the first thing was I did watch this show. I might be ashamed to say it, but I did watch this show. He was a member of The Heights. Do you remember The Heights? It was a television show on Fox.
Super vague.
And they were kind of like an attempt to create a band.
Yeah.
So it was a drama on Fox, but they had that song "How Do You Talk to an Angel?"
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he was the bass player,
But
and I only want to really bring this up because his character on the Heights was named Stan Lee.
What a tie-in.
Yeah.
Laramy, your research knows no end or bounds. Like that's an even better nugget than the first nugget you laid today. But that's not where I know him from.
I know. That's what I said too.
Hold on.
I said, well, that's cool, but that's not what I remember him from.
Okay, so hold on, because I would have known him. He would have had to have been older in whatever I know him from. But
not too much older in what you probably know him
so
from.
familiar, and I'm trying. Like I can see the face I'm thinking of.
Okay.
He's in a suit. For some reason when I'm thinking of him.
Yeah. Okay. So then I think I know which one it is. I had two that you might know him from.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the one that's probably not it first.
Okay.
But this is the most recent.
Okay.
So in the early late 2000s, there was a sitcom starring Ted Danson called Becker.
Yeah, I mean I remember Becker. I didn't watch it.
He played Jake, the blind guy.
He's a Boy Meets World, Laramy. He's Mr. Williams of Boy Meets World.
He's Mr. Turner's friend, Mr. Williams on Boy Meets World.
Oh God.
That was it. Yep.
Oh.
That was it. As soon as you said suit, I was like, okay, he remembers him from Boy Meets World.
Yeah. Oh wow. I couldn't place him. But when you said Becker, because I remember that wasn't exactly the same time frame, but
no, it was after.
Yeah, it was after, but I can still remember those. I guess the Becker reruns are not the Boy Meets World and Becker kind of running at the same time on different channels and flipping through. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Good for Alex, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Good for a lot of people here on this show.
Now, going back to talking about his character being named Stan Lee on the Heights. So he's actually a voice actor. He probably does a lot more voice work. And I found out that he voiced Nick Fury on The Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the show that came on Disney XD.
Killing it. Just all over the superhero market.
And when The Simpsons, just a few years ago, when The Simpsons went through all of the changes of trying to get more ethnic actors voicing the characters, he is currently the voice of Carl on The Simpsons.
Okay. Again, not a big Simpsons guy, but I know enough pop culture to know that the changes they've been trying to make. So, cool.
So, yeah, he's been the voice of Carl since 2020.
Man, I loved Mr. Williams on Boy Meets World. He was I know he wasn't on there a whole lot, but he was one of my favorite characters.
Those early episodes.
One of my favorite characters.
Faded away as they also had Mr. Turner get into the motorcycle crash and then just forgot about him.
Just didn't keep Oh, okay.
He's like a father figure to Sean.
No longer.
The next episode, no mention of him anymore.
He wasn't ever here.
Then he doesn't get mentioned again until. Luckily, they fixed all of that in Girl Meets World. Like they did bring him back for Girl Meets World.
I haven't watched Girl Meets World, so
I didn't watch a lot of it, but I watched some.
Does it ruin Boy Meets World? Like if I watch it?
No, not ruin.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not as good, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't want it to stain my memory of Boy Meets World. Is all.
Yeah. No, it's definitely when you watch Girl Meets World, the show is for your kids, but then there's a lot of references for the parents that are sitting there watching.
That's great news because I don't have any kids, so that'd be fantastic.
Then the rest of these are kind of just some people I decided I'm going to talk about because those are the only three main characters. I mean, you've got the cops that are
the lieutenant is
but I wanted to mention these people. So first up is Dr. Desmond Powell, a.k.a. Nightshade, played by Jason Bernard, who... Did you recognize him?
I did not. What would I...
He's the judge in Liar Liar. So the main case...
I can vaguely
he's the
see
judge
that.
in Liar Liar.
Okay.
He was also... Bethany happened to be watching this the other day, so I caught this. He plays Sandra Bullock's boss in While You Were Sleeping.
I see. I've never seen While You Were Sleeping.
And then I remembered him from a short-lived sitcom called Herman's Head. He was the boss on that show, too. Look up Herman's Head. That's one I wish I could find somewhere, like, in syndication.
Your Internet Archive doesn't have that somewhere?
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Check that. Okay.
But this is... I wanted to bring him up. He's only in 2 episodes, but he is absolutely a version of Wesley Todd's The Sandman from the comic books. I mean, his costume looks the gas mask, the fedora and suit with the trench coat. I mean, he is absolutely supposed to be the Sandman. In fact, they've they kind of reference it because in the episode when the ghost, the villain, when he comes, when he is unfrozen and goes and visits his former girlfriend Belle, he asks her to sing Mr. Sandman.
Yeah, he does. Okay.
So I'm like, that had to be
intentional.
Them saying,
yeah,
we are letting you know we can't. I'm guessing we can't use the character the Sandman.
We're gonna call him Nightshade, but it's Sandman.
Yeah. So, but I want to, and this might reveal something that I'll talk about later, but he was so good in that role.
I think he did a great job. So when I guess earlier when I said everyone just did their best, the cameos end up being pretty good for the most part, and that's probably the best one.
You say that one's the best one?
I really,
because you know who I'm going to talk about next.
I probably know who you're going to talk about, but I enjoyed that episode. It's not in my top ones, but I enjoyed that episode enough to where, and I think it was because I liked him in that role.
Okay. Yeah. No. I like I said. It might just
like,
be his acting.
It suited him. Yeah. He played that.
He just felt so comfortable in that role.
Agreed.
It really. You watch that almost wondering, was this a character from like an old television show or?
Yeah. He did a great job.
Yeah. It's almost like he had been playing that role for a while. All right. Moving on. We got James Montgomery Jesse, aka the Trickster, played by a pre-Joker Mark Hamill.
It's a cool, but I don't know. I guess the reason why that one is not my favorite is because it's like, is he the Riddler? Is he the Joker? Is he trying out stuff before Batman the Animated Series gets out? And I know the Trickster is his own thing.
I was about to say, the Trickster debuted in Flash 113 in June of 1960. He's
not a copy. Yeah. But I don't know. It just, those episodes didn't do it for me, and I wonder if it's because it happens later on in the show, and it had started to take this non-serious turn, and then we get this serial killer popping in all of a sudden, and it becomes serious again. And I don't know. It didn't do it for me.
Yeah, this character was very interesting because they do introduce him as just this psychopath.
Right.
And then he becomes a Batman 66 villain.
Yeah, like a caricature, sorry. So yeah, it just didn't land for me.
All right, well, continuing our now trip into the rogues gallery of this show. Next up, we have Mirror Master Sam Scudder, played by Keith from the Partridge Family. David Cassidy. Of course, the Mirror Master is from the comics, debuted in the Flash 105 in March of 1959. David Cassidy, he's always going to be remembered as the kid from the Partridge Family, but no, he cannot act.
I didn't even know that was David Cassidy, and I could tell you right now he couldn't act either way. I would not care to see anything else he's in ever. Maybe one of the least believable characters on the show, and I'm assuming my feelings are that way because of the acting being so bad.
What did you think too of this being a more trying to fit with the 90s, and so instead of really mirrors, it was these little hologram discs?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It was,
but yeah, they still called him Mirror Master.
It was strange, and I guess technically that's a mirrored surface of some sort.
Yeah, it still didn't make sense though, because there were these discs that he threw to create the holograms, but then the holograms could move around and
so it wasn't actually a mirror.
And they would react to what was happening sometimes, but then other times they were just on a loop, and it was weird.
But again, that's a later episode, and as we were saying, like, it gets zanier and zanier the later it goes.
Then we also have Leonard Winters, because they had to go for the pun in the last name, who played this show's version of Captain Cold. Again, they changed the last name because in the comics he's Leonard Snart. But yeah, they had to go with Winters.
I mean,
here he is, played by Michael Champion. Of course, Captain Cold debuted probably one of the earliest Flash villains, debuted in Showcase number 8, which was just 4 issues after Flash was introduced, in June of 1957. I do want to point out, though, for people who aren't as familiar with Captain Cold, Captain Cold's one of those villains in the comic books that he actually, it's the whole reason why his gun just freezes people. Captain Cold is actually against killing. Like, he does not want to kill anyone. But yet this guy...
Oh, he's ruthless.
Yeah.
That was his whole...
Again, going for that psychopath.
That was his whole aim.
thing.
He was killing people for money, for no reason, for all kinds
Hired assassin.
He was a hired gun.
But what were your thoughts on just their version of Captain Cold?
I don't know if you want me to get into that right now, because it's one of my top 3 episodes.
Okay, well, we can talk about it later.
Okay.
Because we are going to cover the entire series. This isn't one where we just picked a few episodes, but I figured later that Blake and I would share our top 3 favorite episodes, and that we could focus on.
Didn't want to jump the shark on the 3 episodes, but you were kind of forcing my hand there with asking me. So no, I think it's a fun episode. It walks a very fine line between being too serious but not too funny, and I think that our guy Leonard Winters was a pretty good Captain Cold. So yeah, for later on though.
All right, so I did want to mention, because she is such a big part of the Flash in the comics, but Iris West is in this show.
Yeah, hardly.
Yeah, she's in the very first episode.
In name only.
Well, no, you see her. But
I mean, for the most part, she absconds to Paris and pursues a painting career, right?
She's an artist.
She's an artist
this one instead of a reporter. Yeah,
it's like the prequel to Emily in Paris over here, except it's Iris in Paris.
Yeah. But they apparently wanted to push the Barry being single. Didn't want to go ahead and have him in a relationship. And then that also helped tease with the
Tina,
Dr. McGee.
Will they, want they, whatever.
Yeah.
Does it not? It ups the stakes more when they have some type of romantic love interest, though. I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would steer away from that.
I mean, it's like moonlighting. Like, moonlighting has become the staple of relationships in TV because moonlighting, highly successful television show, and it's the will they, won't they. Yep. And as soon as Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd's character actually got together on Moonlighting, the show tanked. So
Jim and Pam kept The Office afloat for a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
It can work.
It can. I'm not saying it can't. It just.
I wish they would have done it here. That's my druthers.
Yeah, but of course, Iris West is from the original comic Showcase number 4 that Flash premiered in. I did want to mention she is played in this first episode by Paula Marshall, who some people might remember from the show Nip Tuck. And more recently, some of you might remember she played Beverly in the movie Malignant.
Oh.
So
Malignant, terrible film. Nip Tuck, great show. Okay.
Yep, she had a recurring role. I didn't write down the character name, but she had a recurring role on Nip Tuck. Then we also had another love interest of the Flash who only appears in the first episode, and that's Linda Park. Here, played by Mariko Say. She's there. She's a reporter that interviews Barry at one point, and then she's never seen or heard from again. She, of course, in the comic books, would eventually become the wife of Wally West. So they had both Barry's future wife in the comics and Wally's future wife in the comics. So they both appeared in the first episode and were never seen again.
I'm interested to hear your take then, because you mentioned 2 love interests. Terry Cronenberg, also a reporter in the Captain Cold episode, very interested in Barry. Would you not call her a love interest, or was she only after the story, I guess?
Well, I also didn't mention her because she's not from the comics. She was created for the show.
I mean, I didn't know if you were just talking love interests in general.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah, they had to throw something in because they couldn't they couldn't go straight into the relationship between Barry and Tina, and so I mean, there was several episodes where Barry had like a date or had
somebody going on. The best romance, him and Julio, bromance for life. Okay, that's the only one he needs, I guess.
I did like too that they kept the Tina and Barry relationship, almost like siblings.
Yeah, and I was down with that for sure. I think it would have been weird if they had become romantically involved. They had a very
platonic relationship, and it was only those. Which I did read. John Wesley Shipp actually said that he was confused by that relationship because they'd read one script and they'd be flirting with each other in the episode. Then he'd read the script for the next week, and they'd barely talk to each other.
Well, to be fair, after were I Barry Allen and I saw her choice and her taste in men after the second episode, a big red flag for me. I would have probably been out also.
But we also, you mentioned cameos. There was a lot of, I say a lot, there's a handful of people that popped up on this that would later become even more famous. You had comedian Richard Belzer, who had a recurring part as Joseph Klein. This was, of course, before even though he's a comedic actor, he, of course, would be even more famous as a actor for Law and Order. But this was before that. And I do want to mention his character. That's why I mentioned his character actually would later be introduced in the comics.
Oh, okay.
But not until 2006. So 25 years later.
They just decided, let's throw him in here.
Yeah. And then there were episodes that featured Jeffrey Combs, Angela Bassett, Jerry Ryan, and then the one that shocked me the most, Bryan Cranston.
Was he in an episode?
Yes, the one, he was the mobster that was after the baby.
That was Bryan Cranston?
That was Bryan Cranston. You got to go back.
I've got to go back and watch it now. What episode was that?
I can't remember
what
the
title was. Oh, it was didn't even realize.
Yeah, it was the one where the girl is protecting the baby, and he's the mobster that's after them.
Wow.
But okay. Yeah, that was Bryan Cranston. So even though we've already talked about all the characters for a little bit, I still have to ask the question: who do you want to see again, and who do you wish would be struck by lightning but not given superpowers?
Always good to hear those. I enjoy John Wesley Shipp. I kind of regret not, and maybe I need to watch the new Flash, the Arrowverse Flash, just to see him show up in there. I think we already hit on he does a great job of playing both the Flash and Barry Allen. And I don't know what he did after this that was big, but
Dawson's Creek.
Okay. Oh, jeez. No. I wish you'd have gotten more roles. I wish I would have seen more of him growing up. But I don't recall seeing him more. Who would I like to see get struck by lightning? I can't pronounce his name. So for everybody that, I think I've said this before, everybody doesn't know, I am hard of hearing. So without closed captioning, it's tough for me to hear things. Who is the older gentleman that's always calling Barry with tips? Feather.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name either. But
one of the most annoying side characters I think I've ever
is like informant.
Yes, yeah. I could struck by lightning. I would be absolutely fine not seeing him in any more episodes.
Which I will point out, that actor, very very popular character actor, who was actually in the original Little Shop of Horrors, the Roger Corman, black and white Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah,
I'm sure he is very popular in certain circles, just not this one.
Yeah. So the great thing was, talking about wanting to see John Wesley Shipp again, is not only he, but Amanda Pays and even Alex Desert. They all
show up in the
replayed
Arrowverse
these roles on the Arrowverse. In fact, Julio becomes, I don't know if he's police captain or chief of police for Central City, based off of the Flash show.
Just climbing the ranks, getting on up there. Who are you wanting more of and less of?
Again, I'm with you. I think this is John Wesley Shipp. When you think of who's your Flash growing up, same way we think Christopher Reeve Superman, Michael Keaton is Batman. John Wesley Shipp was the Flash. So again, I that's why I was so excited when he was on the Grant Gustin CW version of the Flash.
Real quick, was that a surprise to the world, or did people kind of know that was going to happen when he showed up in
that he was going to be playing? Yeah. I think it was a surprise.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Good. I love that.
I mean, yeah, I will say I didn't know until I sat there and watched the first episode.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to go with Mirror Master. Not for
hologram heroine,
whatever he is. Yeah, I don't know about that.
But
yeah,
okay, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah, but now Blake's got to go back and watch the Bryan Cranston.
I cannot believe, and it's I actually looked at it. It's like "Be My Baby," is the name of the episode.
Okay.
And Bryan Cranston apparently plays Philip Moses, mobster Philip Moses. Yeah, and I can't believe I did not realize that was Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, a young Bryan Cranston before Malcolm in the Middle. Bryan Cranston.
I probably didn't recognize him with pants on after watching Breaking Bad and seeing Mr. White.
or as I think Bethany even made a comment of seeing him with hair.
Yeah, with hair, same.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.
All right, so let's get into the moving panels. We've already talked about some of the different connections. Let's talk about his origin. So did you catch how similar / different this Barry Allen's origin was?
As in relation to which...
to the actual comic book.
To the actual, so I'm going to be 100% right here. I've never read the comic book origin of The Flash.
But you don't know what the comic book origin?
The chemicals, lightning strikes, he gets chemicals spilled, and I'm assuming that is pretty on par with what the origin.
Okay, so let's go away from how he gets powers though. So like Spider-Man is influenced by the fact that his uncle, Uncle Ben, is killed.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what inspires the Flash? I mean, I know you've seen the Flash movie.
Yeah, I've seen the Flash movie.
So, and then the CW Flash television show does it. You know what the whole point of Flashpoint is?
Yes.
So, what is it that motivated Barry Allen to want to be a good guy, a superhero?
His mother being murdered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did that happen in this show?
No, it didn't.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Like, are we comparing it to the everything I know about the Flash?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, his brother is struck down,
which he doesn't have in the comics.
Which he doesn't have in the comic books.
The only child in the comics. Yeah.
Yeah. His brother gets struck down instead. Yeah. I don't mind the swap of the mother and the brother so much. Again, it doesn't stick with what we know as comic lore and origin, but it didn't throw me for a loop so bad that it took me out of the episode of the show.
So do you remember what his brother's name was?
Was it Jay?
Yes.
Okay, like Jay Garrick Allen?
Like Jay Garrick.
Yeah.
In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, did his brother not look like Jay Garrick?
Jay Garrick-esque.
Yeah. He had the white silver hair and kind of the more tall, slanky look. Yeah, I just found that interesting that they decided to go that route.
Yeah, they go the brother instead of the mother.
And then making him from a family of cops, which isn't true in the comics either. His dad's a medical doctor in the...
Oh, okay, so I didn't know. I wasn't sure where the family origin was from either. If they just made that up, they took it from the comics, but good to know.
Yeah. All right, so again, like I said, we don't want to talk about all of the episodes. There are a few that I wanted to kind of mention, but we're going to actually talk about what we thought were our favorites, and then we'll dive into those maybe a little bit more. So I'll let Blake, you just name one of your favorites.
So
let's
I actually really liked episode 2, Out of Control.
Okay.
Because I'm
just going to go ahead.
Is that your least favorite?
That's my least favorite.
I love a good island of Dr. Moreau, genetic mutation kind of thing.
a Hulk ripoff.
I enjoy it.
It's a Hulk ripoff.
So sue me. Okay, yes.
They literally named the character Dr. Tanner.
Yeah. Okay. Just because it rhymes with Banner. But I don't know.
And he becomes a rage monster. It's the Hulk.
You asked for my 3 favorites. I'm just giving you what my... See, I'm a little disappointed you didn't pick my least favorite, but we'll get to that in just a bit. No, I like the... I don't know. I like that kind of storyline. Like, I really wish I would have leaned more into the animal aspect of it as opposed to the human aspect of it, because I really felt like that's a pathway to Gorilla Grodd. Like, that's what I feel like that episode was hinting at, was the appearance later on of Gorilla Grodd. Although, because Grodd was in the original Flash, correct? Like, he would have been a character.
Yeah, Grodd would have been a thing at this time. In fact, there's a mention of Gorilla Grodd in the Deadly Nightshade episode.
Yeah. So
and I even think in the Trickster episode when they have the costume party, the fact that Garfield is dressed as a gorilla, I think that's supposed to be a nod to Grodd as well.
So no, I like the episode for those reasons. I get it's a ripoff, and I kind of felt like you were going to call me on it. I didn't think it was going to be your least favorite, but
nope, it was my least favorite.
But I do get calling me on it. It is a valid point.
Again, I picked it as my least favorite just because it just felt like a Hulk ripoff. It was 100%. I mean, it was the first true episode.
Yeah,
because it's after the
whole setup of the pilot and everything.
Yeah, the pilot movie. Again, this was back
an
when
hour and a half, dude.
Did full movies for their pilots.
An hour and a half.
Which I think on television was a full 2 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. So it was. Even though this was kind of the show, it just really felt like the whole monster of the week, villain of the week episode.
I'm okay with those feelings.
Yeah. I do want to mention in that episode, there's a part where Barry receives a phone call, and they're asking for backup at the corner of Gardner and Fox. And Gardner Fox is the co-creator of Jay Garrick's The Flash.
Nice.
So, nice
a lot of cool
nods,
a lot of cool references. I'll get to a couple of more of those in my other episodes, but yeah. So what's your first favorite then?
So my first, now I will say these are not in any order.
Correct.
I just picked my three favorites. Yeah. My first favorite I have listed is the Shroud of Death episode, because I felt like that episode really felt like a cop drama.
Shroud of Death. Give me the quick play-by-play.
That's the one where they're having to race against time to stop.
Is that the
Angel of Death?
The anarchist.
The Angel of Death.
Yeah, okay.
I was sitting here going, the assassin had a name. The Angel of Death is where they had to, because it was really like a crime drama. They were putting together the clues and they were tracking. So it wasn't relying on the superhero aspect.
That was a good episode. It didn't make my top 3, but that was a good episode. So I'm gonna see your Shroud of Death, and I kind of already mentioned I'm gonna raise you Captain Cold. He's a classic, Flash villain. I think for the early 90s, they did a great job of portraying Captain Cold and his abilities and powers. I liked the actor. I apologize, I don't know his name, who played Leonard Winters. I thought he was just creepy enough without being over the top creepy to do a good job there. And I don't know, despite it being a later episode, again, when we've said things get a little zany, it was still grounded enough in comic books that I felt I enjoyed that episode more than some others.
Yeah, I'll say, and Captain Cold was played by Michael Champion. Although I couldn't find an awful lot that he had done.
I think he did a great job.
But no, I agree with it. I would say of the Rogue Gallery, the comic book villains, it was probably the best interpretation. Mm-hmm. Not, straight out of the comics like the Trickster, but not extremely changed up like Mirror Master. Yeah, I think it was a good... I'm not against that episode. Okay. It was a pretty good fit. I do want to point out, you mentioned the reporter that's in that episode.
Yeah.
Terry Cronenberg.
They call her Lois Lane at one point.
They call her Lois Lane at one point in that episode.
Another cool little Easter egg.
Yep. My next one is Ghost in the Machine, which I mentioned earlier.
That was a good episode.
They introduced Nightshade.
It was a good episode.
Yeah, I love them giving Barry a mentor.
Yep.
And having that aspect. I will say, though, it is a very 90s episode because when the ghost, again, he's frozen himself and he wakes up in the 90s, in 1990, and there's a part where he's looking at a television and he says, 173 channels. This is the future.
And now.
Yeah. I just thought that was hilarious.
It's a really good episode, and it's tough to go wrong with a mentor episode, so to speak. It allows for the main character a lot of introspection and a lot of kind of looking at themselves and what they're doing and learning from someone who's quote unquote done it before. Which leads me kind of into my third favorite here. So Twin Streaks was my third favorite, and that's where he gets cloned. And I've got a soft spot for superhero episodes and movies where the superhero's like fatigued and tired and run down and has to kind of again take a step back in some ways, but also lean on the wisdom of others to kind of help guide them to being a better superhero, a better person. And I think Tina says to him, you've got to slow down and you can't keep running yourself ragged. And at the end, Barry quote unquote watches himself die. Yeah. And I think he makes the comment like, I've learned I need to kind of take my time. Now, the rest of the episodes, he's running around like he always does, so clearly he learned nothing. But I like the sentiment. I enjoyed the sentiment.
Yeah, I like, of course, the character wasn't from the comics. He was called Pollux in this. He's clearly like a mashup of like Reverse Flash, but I think also he's like a Bizarro. Because he was like a child the whole time. Yeah. But even the purple, bluish purple suit that he had on kind of paid more nod, I think, to Bizarro.
And it was, like I said, it was a fun episode, but still had some serious tones to it that I enjoyed.
I will say, this is, again, me being kind of just poking fun at stuff. At the end, when Pollux is dying in Barry's arms, they cut to a shot of Barry and Tina, and you can tell that what John Wesley Shipp is just holding the suit.
Costume.
He's just holding the costume.
So between that and I love how throughout the show I was primed to expect some type of CGI to happen because the screen would look completely different than it did any other time. And I guess that was because the tech at the time, you had to have a certain, I don't know, green screen there, or you had to have your film done a certain way. But I could tell when they were going to do something CGI because the complete look of the show would change as far as the coloring, the saturation, and the tint. And that was just funny. I got primed to expect something CGI to occur.
I will say they did a pretty good job. There was one part where there's one part where the two are seeing each other, and they actually, I think, do they shake hands or they pass something from one?
He takes the wallet.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That's it. He takes the wallet, and I was like, that looked pretty seamless for 1990.
A lot of the CGI is not awful. You go back and watch it; it's not terrible, especially the time that it was.
And a lot of it's practical.
It's very practical. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it's practical. Yeah. I mean, him running, even though they do an effect, like some of the times it's a practical shot of him like up against the side, the bad guy looking at him through the window of the car, and he's right there. So my third one, which is kind of funny because you've already mentioned how much you didn't like this, was actually the last episode, Trial of the Trickster.
Oh, God. Okay.
But the reason why I liked it, is I thought, okay, this is the first villain that has, not the first villain that has repeated because they had that Pike from the original comeback, but this was the first of the Flash villains.
Sure, the actual rogues gallery of his.
And it was clearly like they were thinking ahead. If there was going to be a second season, we're starting to establish stuff. But on top of that, seeing Mark Hamill develop the Joker through this character.
I was just going to say, you can see a direct line.
Yes. to see him develop the Joker. And then I didn't find anything that confirmed this, but you've got to think that Prank, this version of Prank, was an inspiration for Harley
Quinn. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You'll find no argument on those points from me. The episode as a whole, I still don't enjoy. But yes, you can see, again, a direct line from Trickster to Mark Hamill's Joker and the inspiration for Harley Quinn. I think a lot of it was right there.
And if you've never seen Mark Hamill returned in the CW Flash as the Trickster.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he returned as the Trickster. But if you've never seen Mark Hamill's Trickster, just watch one of these episodes. I would say Trial of the Trickster more over the first one he's in, which might just be called
the Trickster. I think it's just the Trickster.
Yeah, I think it's just called the Trickster. But go and watch Mark Hamill as the Trickster. You hear that voice, you hear that, then you go see, Batman the Animated Series, and of course his infamous voice is the Joker, which are very similar.
Yep.
But then, if you've never seen this, there is an episode of Justice League Action. Now, that was a cartoon that came on Cartoon Network that I think a lot of people have forgotten about because it was kind of cheesy and all that. But there is an episode of Justice League Action in which Mark Hamill, the actor Mark Hamill, is kidnapped by the Joker and the Trickster. And so the entire episode is Mark Hamill.
He just voices all three?
Mark voices all three characters.
I gotta go find that now. Yeah,
a wonderful episode show to watch. We might find a way to get that in here.
Do a one shot,
do like a watch along.
On the episode.
Do a watch along on that episode.
Okay, that is again impressive on Mark's part there. Yeah, I've seen some interviews where he does the Joker voice live, like you're watching actually him do it, and it's very Trickster. Like it's a cool watch to see him do that voice. So your top three, not a lot of argument. Your worst one, I don't agree with, but I respect.
I respect your decision as well.
Possibly the worst near hour of television I have ever watched. Okay. Episode 21, Alpha.
Okay, yeah.
That
I will say I considered that one.
Bad.
I considered that one. Yeah.
Between the writing on the episode, the acting on the episode, you want to talk about ripoffs? The direct Terminator ripoff of Omega, from the look to the impersonation of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Everything about that episode is rancid.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I did consider that one as
bad.
My favorite.
Again,
I'm right there with you.
One of, if not the worst hours of television I've ever watched, and it's no surprise to me. And I was kind of looking at this as I was looking at episodes, that the viewership numbers. So this thing premieres at 22.5 million viewers. By the end of our run, we're down to 9.5, 8.4, up to 10.4, 8.4. The finale ends at 11.4 million. Half of what it started out, Laramy. I think, and I don't know if there's a reason for this. Maybe you can shed some light on that for me. But it drops drastically, and I think part of it is how bad it got.
Well, I don't know how much of it was that and how much of it was, as we talk about a lot when we talk about some of the failures of this, how much just interference from, studio network type interference. So this show premiered on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock up against The Cosby Show on NBC.
It's tough competition at the time.
Then when Fox decided to move The Simpsons to Thursday night at 8 o'clock. CBS said, okay, we can't go up against both
compete
the Cosby
with
Show.
The Simpsons and the Cosby Show. Yeah.
They originally moved it back a half hour, so it was up against A Different World on NBC, which came on after Cosby Show, and then there was a show called Babes that came on Fox, which I had never heard of.
And while you're going through this, for those of you young enough to not understand, you had to pick one show to watch during that time. No recording, no streaming. You picked a show, and that's what you stuck with for the whole season.
Yeah, unless you had one of those fancy VCRs that would let you record one channel while you watched the second channel.
When we got one of those, Laramy, I thought we were on top. I was like, we have made it. Okay.
Yeah. But again, when you got 3, Cosby Show, Flash, and Simpsons, you couldn't do it. But then the problem was, so this Thursday night, which NBC used to call must-see TV, was Thursday night. They then moved it to Saturday.
Oh.
Yeah, people always talk about Friday night kind of being the death slot for a television show.
Nobody's at home on Saturday night.
No one's going to be watching a show on Saturday. And then from what I read, they started messing with the time slot even.
Okay, well.
And again, talking about 1990, 91, the only way you knew when something was on was you found it in the TV guide. And so I think people just didn't know when this show came on.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think that had something to do. I'm not going to say I'm disagreeing with you about the campiness and the cheesiness not playing a factor, but I also think, because if you go to like IMDb and you look at the user ratings, like they're all in the 70s and up.
Okay.
75 might be one of the low, like 7.5 because it's out of 10.
So because it was dancing around so much that it was tough to locate and watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I think that had something to do with it. But before we get to our final decision, I wanted to point out some of the comic references, as I mentioned earlier with Garner Fox, that were in these. So in episode 3, Watching the Detectives, the story is about an arsonist that Barry calls Firebug, which I think would be a reference to Firefly.
Yep.
Tina also is on a phone call, and she talks about Dr. Carter Hall, which is Hawkman.
Yep.
In episode 4, Honor Among Thieves, there is a car crash at 4th and Garrick. So there's another Jay Garrick reference. Episode 5, I think the villain in episode 5, who's the guy with the crazy thing on his head that controls Barry, I think he could be a reference to the Puppeteer, who was a Green Lantern villain. Also wore sunglasses like this guy, always put the sunglasses on. Episode 7, Child's Play, featuring the late Jonathan Brandis. Barry vibrates through the wall, which he first did in March of 1959 in Flash number 105. There is a mention to Arkham in that episode. They talk about the Arkham expose.
Yep.
And I think that villain is also similar to a DC villain named Count Vertigo. And funny enough on this one, they wanted Alice Cooper to play that part.
Oh.
Alice Cooper turned it down, though, because he did not want to play a drug dealer.
Oh, good for Alice.
So,
kudos
to Alice
good
Cooper. For Alice Cooper there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, that's where this is episode 7, and some of the cheesiness started coming in because if you remember, Flash defeats them by playing the electric guitar.
Yeah. It's again, it just, they had sprinkles of some good episodes later on, but it started downhill for me.
In episode 12, The Trickster, there is a statue of the Flash. This can't have been true because it looks like Alec Ross's version of the Flash from Kingdom Come.
Oh yeah,
but Kingdom Come wasn't written until '96. So
did Alex Ross draw inspiration from?
I don't know. And then I've already mentioned in the costume party, Lieutenant Garfield's dressed as a gorilla. And then if you look in the background, there's a guy dressed as Superman.
Oh, so, I missed that.
Yeah, Superman exists apparently in this universe.
Wow, okay. Well, Lois Lane exists, so you would think.
True, they mentioned Lois Lane, yeah. In episode 13, Tina, Is That You? Where they do this crazy thing and Tina becomes bad.
Oh.
There is a mention of Keystone Drive, which Keystone City is the home of Jay Garrick and Wally West in the comic books. Barry travels through time in episode 15, Fast Forward, so big thing there. But the Flash Museum, which is in that episode, that, of course, a big thing from the comics, first appearing in Flash 154 in August of 1965. Let's see. I think I've mentioned most of the others. Oh, in the Done with Mirrors, the Mirror Master episode, Barry's undercover name is Professor Zoom. which is great. And funny enough, John Wesley Shipp would actually voice Zoom on Batman the Brave and the Bold.
It all comes together. Again,
Yeah.
absolute knowledge drop. Again, did not know that. Very cool.
And then throughout the series, there's mention of an area of town called Helltown, which is from the comics. And then there's the Infantino Hotel, which is named for Carmine Infantino, who is the guy who created Barry Allen. So there you have it. So let's go ahead and get into our final decisions. Bag it, stack it, or trade it. What do you say, Blake?
I'm stacking it. It's enjoyable enough to watch, I guess for me, once every almost 30 years, I guess. But going back and watching it, again, it's not an awful watch.
No.
It's not something I would just absolutely trash. There are some great redeeming episodes and moments. If you need a list of what to skip, ask me, not Laramy, as he skipped Out of Control as one of his worst ones, which is a great episode. No, it's a stack it. I'll hold on to it. I'm not going to bag it. Obviously, it's not something I want to keep in pristine condition, but it's okay to sit on the shelf for me to return to every now and then.
So I went back and forth, and I ultimately am going to say bag it.
Wow. Okay.
And it's because of something I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
This show and John Wesley Shipp as the Flash, this should be put on the same pedestal, in my opinion. Maybe a little lower pedestal, but this should be put up in the same area as Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, as Adam West's Batman, as Christopher Reeve's Superman. You know, as just these were. This is what originated this character live action.
Okay.
Yes, the show may come off cheesy, especially for modern audiences, but that's because our knowledge of the way television is and the way television is done has evolved.
Sure.
But the way this show balances the superhero stuff with the non-superhero stuff, like I mentioned one of my favorite episodes, the one that's more of like a crime drama, I think it does that so well. I mean, we've talked about the whole show, how John Wesley Shipp does a good job with both The Flash and Barry Allen.
Agreed. Which
is something that we don't always say about actors that play superheroes. They're usually good at one, but not the other. Again, this show suffered from network involvement. It also suffered from production value. This was one of the most expensive shows in the 90s. It is estimated that it cost $1.6 million to produce each episode.
Wow, that's probably a wild number if you go back and look at...
For 1990.
That's probably a crazy number.
Yeah. And then, of course, they were given the rules from the network of, we don't want you to do supervillains. So that's why the episodes deal more with actual crooks and gangsters and all. And it wasn't until the network started not paying that much attention that they started throwing in the actual supervillains. And then, like I said, CBS started moving it around. It had to compete with the Cosby Show and the Simpsons, and then just people not being able to keep up when it came on. I also think it suffered from, this was the time of the Gulf War. And so people were distracted.
Yeah. A lot of other things going on.
Yeah. So it didn't have the viewership, but as I mentioned earlier, it was good ratings wise. If you actually look at the ratings were pretty consistent. And it actually was a surprise that it got canceled. But like I said, I think that also came with the money. But I love that at least the main characters from this got to come back in the CW show, and they all kind of had their farewell
send off
in the They all had a proper send off in that. So for those reasons is why I just go into bag it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because it's one of the founding fathers of superhero.
I like it.
Superhero stuff there. So. Even though it's one of the ones that people typically don't think of or remember. All right, so any last words you got for us, Blake?
None that are worth repeating, I guess. No.
But yeah, if you can find it, it's not streaming anywhere, which is kind of a bummer. You can find a lot of episodes on YouTube. I did discover. And I mean, I have it on the full series on DVD. It's on box set, and I actually found out that one of my discs was messed up, so I went looking to see if I could find a replacement. And this thing's not expensive. I think you can buy the whole series for
I
like
watched
15
it
bucks.
On the Internet Archive website. Like you can go in there and watch the whole season. And I guess final words. It is worth a watch if you haven't watched it in a long time, or if you've never seen it. And like Laramy said, you want to see one of the OGs of superhero television. This is one of those.
And feel free to skip around.
You don't have to watch them in chronological order.
And you don't have to watch all 22 episodes.
No.
You do have to make sure you watch the Trickster.
The Trickster episodes, but other than that, you can kind of bounce around. There are quite a few of them that are worth a watch.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up for today. Thank you, Blake, for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. We got some exciting stuff coming. Valentine's Day is on the way, so Bethany and I will be doing our date night review. And then we've got March Madness, where we're going to dive deep into Watchmen and finish off our Alan Moore.
We can do it!
And then we got some more exciting things coming as summer approaches that I can't wait to tell everybody about. But we'll go ahead and end things today. Rate and review the show. But for today, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.